I started Pride Month with something more positive, and now I'm going to end it with a bit of a downer. Or not really a downer, I guess, but just not as fluffy as anime being cool and good. For longtime viewers, you may have heard me mention once or twice that I was in the military, specifically the Navy. I joined in February 2013 and then got out just shy of 6 years later after a multitude of traumatic events. Then, like many others in my shoes, I turned into a filthy anti-imperialist. Military life has its pros and cons, and much like in the wider world, if you are anything but a straight white man, it will be more difficult for you. I want to get ahead of the rest of the video by saying that no, I do not support the actions of the US military overall. I and many others like me didn't really have an option in joining. If you want to talk about the ways our economy keeps people down to maintain a steady stream of recruits into imperialist efforts, then that's a conversation that I would love to have. I am, however, exhausted by people who insist I must have had another option, while ignoring everything that I say about my living circumstances leading up to when I joined. Back to my topic. I'm going to rewind a bit back in time to the administration of President Bill Clinton. In 1992, he campaigned on the promise to allow all citizens to serve in the military regardless of sexual orientation. Eventually, he compromised, and the Don't Ask, Don't Tell policy was instituted in 1993. Being gay in the military was grounds for discharge going all the way back to the Civil War. LGBT people still served, of course, they just did it in hiding. When found out, or even suspected, they were subjected to all types of humiliation and disgrace. Court-martials, imprisonment, and the dreaded blue discharge. That was a type of administrative discharge that was neither good nor bad, technically. But it was grounds for that veteran to be denied services by the Veterans Administration, and it even affected civilian job availability because of its societally negative connotation. The service member was given their discharge information on a blue piece of paper, or a blue ticket, hence the name blue discharge. This action also disproportionately affected Black service members. There were a few changes to this policy over the years, but they didn't affect the undeniable fact that these discharges were ruining lives. Well, ruining them faster than military service itself could. Fast forward back to the Clinton administration, and now we have a policy issued in December 1993 that would go into effect February of 1994. This policy made it so that homosexual and bisexual people could still be barred from service unless they were in the closet. They could not publicly be in a same-sex relationship or even talk about being in them during active service. So they were allowed, but not really. They had to live a lie to be allowed the same rights as any other American to serve in the military. I hear you already. Who cares about getting to join the military? Well, for many people, military service is the most honorable thing you can do, for better or worse. There are families with military traditions, and there are areas that are hyper-patriotic, and that can make people feel like they are less than if they don't at least try to serve in the military at some point. Military fetishization in America heavily affects the desire of people to join. The ways it affects recruitment in our culture are a lot to get into, though. For a great resource on that, check out Pop Culture Detective's Military Recruitment and Hollywood video, linked below. So a lot of people joined out of a sense of duty, the promise of a good education after your tour ends, or just getting away from an undesirable situation back home. Don't Ask, Don't Tell was in effect until, are you ready for this? 2011. That's only 10 years ago. And only 2 years before I joined the Navy. In February 2013, I went to a boot camp and met a woman who I immediately admired. She was a chief petty officer and was a great leader. Partway through my time in boot camp, she was replaced by another woman, and we weren't really told what happened or where she went. I graduated boot camp and went on to my school for my actual Navy job. I was curious what happened to her, and so I Googled her name. What I found was an active court-martial against her for fraternization. Now, when she disappeared, the rumor mill among the recruits ran overtime. We theorized maybe she had popped on a drug test. Maybe she had been doing something naughty with a recruit. None of us came up with something like what actually happened. Chief Petty Officer Sabrina Russell had been accused of having an unduly familiar personal relationship with Petty Officer First Class Jody Geibel that violated military rules prohibiting higher-ranking enlisted personnel from having romantic or other close relationships with lower-ranking personnel within the same command. She and her partner had been joined in a civil union the year before. Their relationship began a long time before when they shared the same rank. Russell rightly made the case that she was being discriminated against because of the nature of their relationship. I repeat, she was absolutely right. The Navy side argued that the same would have been done for a heterosexual relationship, which was a lie then and now. Russell's lawyer practically quoted what I learned in boot camp about the Navy rules on fraternization. If someone gets selected to become an officer and they get married, it's okay to get married. They have a provision for that. This is exactly the same scenario. If a relationship goes back to before one person gets rank over the other, it is written in the Navy instructions that that is not a problem unless the relationship is prejudicial to good order and discipline. Remember that last bit, it will be important later. So basically, if two first classes are dating, engaged, married, and one of them is promoted over the other, or one of them gets their commission and becomes an officer, they won't be forced to divorce or break off the engagement or even break up. The relationship existed before the rank difference and so is fine as long as those two people do not disrupt the chain of command or affect the work environment. In this case, nobody even knew that they were together until base officials discovered that the two had joined in a civil union. So why was it different here? I would just leave that question hanging, but just in case you don't get it, it's because the Navy didn't recognize their civil union or their relationship the same way it would have for a heterosexual couple. Want to know how this information made it to the base officials in the first place? One of Russell's colleagues looked at her phone without permission and found a photo of the civil union ceremony. They snapped a photo of it with their own phone and reported it. According to Russell's lawyer, the sailor and another man had pushed the issue of the gay relationship because they were angry at the female couple for reporting unrelated alleged incidents of sexual harassment. Which, from personal experience, angry male sailors will do anything to hurt a woman who reports sexual harassment or assault in the military. Unlike many other cases of this type, Russell and her partner had some closure that did not involve their unceremonious discharge. The charge against Russell was dropped in August 2013. Not long before, the Supreme Court ruled that Section 3 of the Defense of Marriage Act, which denied federal recognition of same-sex marriages, was a violation of the Due Process Clause of the Fifth Amendment. I remember that ruling. We were going into DC around that time, and we were told to avoid any protesters we saw because we were representing the federal government, and we can't show support one way or another. Including one of my classmates who was now looking at the possibility of her relationship with her partner being federally recognized. Weird how she couldn't publicly show support for the recognition of her own marriage because it was too political, but none of the married straight sailors had that same problem. It's even more ridiculous to me because I have seen so many heterosexual couples between people of different rank form, not just within the same command, but within the same office. I know that's an anecdote, but it happens so much that there is a joke term for relationships formed on deployment that may or may not continue after you return. They're called boat boos, and even married service members will frequently get one. All of this came shooting up from the depths of my memory after I rewatched Serving in Silence. It is a TV movie from 1995 starring Glenn Close and Judy Davis. The movie tells the story of Washington National Guard Colonel Margareta Kammermeyer. I watched this movie once as a kid and didn't really understand it. I also didn't have all of the personal experience that I have now. Personal experience that makes this old-ass TV movie feel very relevant. It's based on the autobiography of the same name and picks up when the colonel transfers to the National Guard and moves to be near her kids in Washington. Wait, is that Ryan Reynolds? Oh, wow. I mean, I know he at one point had to be a baby to grow up to look the way he looks now, but it's still weird to see him like this. Margareta meets Diane, the woman that she would marry decades later. Diane is an artist and flirts in probably the hottest way possible. They get together and much later have the coming out talk when Greta's father is about to move in with her. Greta won't hide who she is and tells her father. He doesn't reject her, but he also doesn't really accept her. The real conflict begins when Greta decides to upgrade her security clearance, a process that requires a security interview. The interviews are meant to identify potential risks to sensitive information. They will cover things like debt, or if you've had drinking problems that could affect your trustworthiness or morals. Immoral behavior is one thing that can be a real burr in this process, because immoral behavior is defined by the most conservative people among us. So in a system that considers something like marijuana to be an illegal drug, if you have ever smoked it, then you engaged in immoral behavior. That alone could be grounds for them to deny you your clearance. In this case, it is the homosexual identification of the soldier that is the immoral behavior. The interviewer grills her about if she was faithful to her husband while they were married, because as we all know, homosexual people are just more promiscuous. For the rest of the movie, it's brought up how her lifestyle could pose a security risk because it could make her estranged from people in her life. In the end, her security clearance is denied and her discharge process begins. She could fight it or resign immediately and avoid the public spectacle. She changes between wanting to fight the discriminatory rules and not wanting the whole world, including her children, to know that she is a lesbian. She and Diane meet with legal representation from a group that assists LGBT people. My favorite part of this scene is watching someone who fully believes in the country they serve and cannot imagine a world where she would be abandoned for something like this.
Dusty gave an interview to the LA Times identifying herself as a lesbian.
And a minister. Did you think soldiers had First Amendment rights? No way.
She's introduced to another woman who is discharged for being a lesbian. And it finally starts to hit her that it doesn't matter how respected she is. Discriminatory regulations win every time. I mean...
You think the Army's your family. You think it's your life. Except maybe your family could forgive you.
I'm sorry, that's just so funny. When she does decide to fight, she tells her sons first. They admit that they already knew long before she did. So did her ex-husband. Her son, who is getting married, even admits that he told his fiancée on their first date. So if she wasn't okay with it, they wouldn't be together. This is in response to Greta's implying that she may not want to be with him anymore if his mother is out as a lesbian. One of her kids rejects her at first, but don't worry, he comes around. Over the course of the story, some of her kids leave their father's house to live with her instead. After the wedding, the married son and his wife speak at her court-martial in her defense. She is shown support by colleagues and friends. Her lawyer argues at the court-martial that her sexuality has never negatively impacted her ability to do her job. You know, it wasn't disrupting that good order and discipline that we talked about earlier. And the opposition representation for the government argues that it doesn't matter that she's a decorated, well-respected officer with a flawless record. All that matters is what's written in black and white in the regulation. Unfortunately, but predictably, she is given an honorable discharge, which is more than lower-ranking people in her position usually got.
I'll miss all of you very much. It's been an honor to serve with you. Thank you.
Take care. Present! Art!
In the film and real life, Margareta Kammermeyer became a gay rights advocate. She was eventually reinstated into the army after pursuing the matter as a civilian. She became one of the few people who were openly gay and still serving during Don't Ask, Don't Tell. This type of discrimination seems like it should be way far back in the past. We've legalized gay marriage now, so equality achieved, right? When people want to be homophobic without just saying they don't like LGBT people, they tend to complain about how gay people get the whole month of June when they don't really need it. They haven't gone through real struggles like the troops. Don't bring up May being Military Appreciation Month because I promise you they don't actually care. They also don't care how many gay, bi, trans, etc. people who are also a part of that nebulous troops. They need a way to be homophobic that gives them an out. They aren't homophobic, they just really care about good patriotic things like soldiers. Well, 10 years ago was when gay and bisexual people were finally able to openly serve in the military. More recently, cases like the one of my chief continued to try and push us out. And within the last few years, we've seen open bans on trans people being able to serve. We have our own month because our existence in the spaces we occupy is still under attack by others in those communities. This can be applied broadly to different parts of any society, not just to those who choose to or have to join the military. Thanks for watching, and happy Pride. Thank you again for watching. This has been a hard video to write and record, even harder to edit. I have had a lovely month other than my experience writing this though, and I hope you all have as well. I'm very happy for the small but mighty viewership I have built here. I'm going to be spending some time this month reorganizing and moving my computer desk. If you like the video, then like the video, subscribe for more, and leave me a comment with your thoughts. If you'd like to help me do this full time, then consider my Patreon at patreon.com/writingwomen, where you can subscribe for as little as $2 a month. Thank you to my current patrons: Mary Doc Brandybuck, Ms. Psycho, Amy Chu aka The Doctor, Lord Butterbutt, Bruce, Red, Kirsten, Olivia, and Mark. Thank you for watching. Bye bye!